Okay, I'm delighted to welcome Alejandro Zarate today, where we're going to discuss the topics of ethics and bias in AI. Alejandro has a successful career, especially working in the insurance field. I guess, Alejandro, obviously this is a booming market at the minute. Where's your success come from, and what do you think takes it to be successful in the near future?
Well, thank you, Ben, for the invitation. I have been for about now 10 years in data, fully immersed in data with Marsh in New York. And over this time, I have had the opportunity to evolve in my career, doing different roles. And since the beginning in 2013, when I joined Marsh in New York as head of product development or data product development in the insurance consulting group in New York, I think something that I have always prioritized in along my career has been try to be always up to date on what is new, to have very, very good understanding about the new stuff that is coming out, being able to actually put my hands on into stuff in terms of software development, in terms of modeling, in terms of trying new things. So I think one of the most important things today is to be open to try new things and to really get your hands dirty, no matter what level you are of seniority, and really get into try the new technologies, right? As we were saying just before, now with generative AI, opportunities are so big that we as business leaders and technology leaders, we need to really get into understanding all the possibilities and all you can do with these technologies.
Yeah, definitely. Technology is moving quickly, should we say?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So we're going to look into, obviously, with the changes, obviously, that's happened recently, obviously, ethics, bias is, was a big concern for businesses. So we look at, obviously, explore the threats, the opportunities. Like I mentioned, there's been increasing attention around this subject, obviously, with the advancements in technology, the complexity of AI systems. So it's an exciting field it's no lie, it's an exciting field to be in at the minute. Obviously, there's a lot happening, a lot of positive things. Also, can be, I say negative things which need to be eradicated. If you look at ChatGPT and all the other systems that have been released this year, it's pretty much disrupt the market, and it's going to be a game changer for a lot of industries. So, and also, I guess there's going to be a lot of concern on the ethical side, which obviously we're going to look into. So, do you want to sort of dig into it? You're as the expert, what is AI ethics in your respect?
Do you mean the AI fix, you said?
AI ethics.
Ethics, I'm sorry.
Ethical AI.
Sorry, yes. Well, the way I look at it is we have two components. Obviously, one, we have the models, which obviously is like the engine that allows us to get places. But data is definitely the fuel for this, right? And in terms of ethics, I think we have a key component, which is obviously data. There is a new concept that is coming, I would say it's becoming more and more common, or you start to hear more and more, which is data-centric AI. And when people talk about data-centric AI, for me, it's talking about ethics, because it's really about how can I have data that is appropriate for any kind of AI model. Let me put you an example. For example, if you are going to do sentiment analysis and you're going to apply it to insurance, right? And you want to classify certain kind of interactions with your clients, if you don't really have a well-curated, very clean kind of training set for your algorithms, you risk to misclassify, and you risk to really get the wrong results, right? So for me, in terms of ethics, one of the main aspect today is to have a data-centric approach to artificial intelligence, in which more and more you will need to curate your data sets, right? For before using them for any training purpose. In fact, one of the discussions I have in my let's say in my everyday activities is really this concept about that we need to have dedicated data sets that are suitable for machine learning and AI, right? Mm-hmm. That we really need to put a lot of controls, and we need to put a lot of emphasis in creating these data sets and trying to make sure that they are well balanced, they are well labeled, that it can actually be used in any kind of task, in any kind of AI task, right? So I think that's a key aspect to start, right?
Yeah.
I think curation, data set versioning also will be very important from the ethical point of view. And the second point of view, obviously, is the models itself, right? What kind of models you have, explainability of these models, how can you explain how they work, how they get to the conclusions they get. And number three, I think has to do a lot with the actual applications and how do you use models, right? And I think that's one of the biggest concern around the ethical use of AI, because basically, if you think about bad actors using these kind of technologies for purposes, for example, like impersonating people or fraud or or the other kind of things, I think it's a very important aspect to take in consideration, right? The actual applications and products that are put in the market, even they can be created with very good intentions. They could be using like very clean, very good data sets, but if they are not using it in the right way, is there's still danger of non-ethical use of them.
Yeah, well, we've seen obviously people get manipulated. Like I think there's been a clip of Eminem's music, things like that. So you need it's a big challenge obviously ahead, but obviously there's a lot of benefit to come as well. And I guess it's important for businesses to get that fairness, trust, and safety for their business, because they don't want to obviously mislead their customers, etc. Because it just create a negative effect to society, and it's just gonna, like I said, you lose that trust, and obviously as soon as you lose trust, it's hard to win back your customers and obviously your client base in that respect. So obviously there's a lot of issues in AI, with ethical AI. I guess you've got the privacy, you've got bias, discrimination. What do you see is going to be the key ethical issues coming up in AI?
Well, I think bias is probably the most relevant, especially if you are trying to develop applications that can impact other people's life. Recently in New York, for example, this new law requiring anyone using software for recruitment. If you want to recruit someone, well, you're in that business, right? So,
Yeah.
so they have released new regulation instead that if you are going to use any kind of software or machine or AI to select candidates or to make decisions around people's access to job, this needs to be very well explained, right? Or you need to be able to explain or audit the model somehow. I think that's quite difficult in practice, because to audit a bias, I think it will be a complete new industry, by the way, I think, around this kind of stuff, right? But for me, bias is one of the most important aspects around the ethical concerns, and of course, bad actors, right? In that sense. Now, something that I think it's a very big risk, which is not so obvious, is we are facing a variety now of new foundational models, or these, large language models or other generative AI models that are available, like they are available, let's say, for anyone, open source. And I think one of the biggest risks for companies is to try to use some of these tools just out of the box, right? And I think that's a very big risk also, because if you have any kind of reputational exposure, you cannot just use these models as they come, right? Like as they are presented. Of course, many of these companies, they make good efforts around trying to have, good models, and the model doesn't give you any. Now, try to avoid to hallucinate or to have like any kind of racist expression or anything else. But at the end of the day, these are models in which you have no idea how they were trained or what data they were trained. My view in that sense is that if enterprises want to use these models, I think you should use them, because obviously the power of large language models is more than obvious. But the way I'm looking at it is that, first of all, I need to understand if I can fine-tune these models to my specific use case. to give an example, something I have been working on is just to classify claims, right? In categories. You have the claim description, and I try to classify that claim. If you cannot do this just out of the box. Let's say if you want to use GPT-3 or any other of the large language models, right?
Yeah.
If I want to use this for an enterprise application, for me, my first way of thinking is, yes, I may use these large language models. I could do transfer learning, but I should be fine-tuning them so the outputs I get from the model are very well and are limited to the kind of output I'm looking for. So the model doesn't go to any crazy place, right? So that's the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah. Obviously, why do you think these ethical issues arise? Is it like lack of like incomplete data, or is it companies trying to get a competitive advantage, or why do you think it's sort of these ethical issues will arise?
Well, I think it's lack of understanding around models. I think that's one of the biggest problems. I mean, obviously, big companies, big corporations have big data organizations that can deal with a lot of the complexities around using these models. I think the biggest exposure is for small and medium-sized companies who don't have these resources, and they will probably not have the processes, and they will not have the kind of talent that can allow them to actually make sure that their products are completely, or they have minimized the risk of any ethical issue, like as you were mentioning before, discrimination or biases or this kind of stuff.
So all about process, which I think a lot of businesses that's the challenging bit. Is everyone, you can have the brightest talent, but formulating a process is a challenging thing for any business in any industry, because it's just the structure.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the first recommendation in general is that you should not be using just out of the box large language models for any enterprise application. You need to have some kind of fencing if you want, which in my view, it can be achieved very well with fine tuning, right?
Yeah.
Or if you're going to do like a semantic search or other kind of applications, it's not as complex, but really put a lot of attention in hallucinations and put a lot of emphasis also in fencing very well what is the kind of outputs you can get from these kind of new models.
Right. So would you think this, obviously every business is getting involved with this, obviously a lot of research development needs to be done. Should businesses have, obviously they're looking into the regulations of how to manage this, should each business have a regulation sort of team involved, or should, like, I know there's other like businesses that certify products, processes in AI, should that be the I guess the body of it, or do you think it should be done in-house?
Well, it's funny because now as you know, I'm Mexican by origin, and I'm supporting some members of the Mexican Congress around thinking a regulation around AI. I'm most in favor with this thinking around that products should be regulated, not so much the science itself or the data. I think it's very hard to regulate the data or the science, but certainly the products, they should be regulated, and they should exist in the United States or anywhere where you are, some kind of federal regulation or federal equivalent to federal level regulation to what kind of products you can use and you can develop with AI, definitely, because I think it's very hard to allow companies to self-regulate because obviously companies have a purpose, and their purpose is not self-regulation, right? They have other motivations and a different mission, right? So in my point of view is that there should be regulation. There should be strong regulation in all countries, especially around, and I forgot to mention this before, using personal information, like sensitive personal information for model training, for example, that should not happen. Privacy, as you were saying before, it's key, and also the kind of products you can create, right?
Okay. Good, good. Okay, go on. Let's just discuss. Obviously, you said one of the key challenges would be bias in AI. So, what's your definition of bias? And I guess what are different types of bias in AI?
Well, bias is, from my point of view, is when you have data that reflects inherent attitudes towards something in your data, right?
Yeah.
For example, maybe you remember this example about this Amazon. I think it was Amazon or some other company. I don't really remember the company, but there was a case about this big corporation. I really don't know if it's Amazon, but there was this case about this big corporation that was using machine learning to select potential engineers, right?
Okay.
And they were training based on the profiles of the people they already had working in the company, right? And people who were successful in the company.
Yeah.
What happened is that because their hiring processes already incorporate some kind of bias towards, people from certain, let's say, ethnic origin.
Yeah, I've heard about this.
Yes. When they were trying to recruit with this tool, they were getting exactly just people that look like them, right? They were not getting minorities, or they were not getting people from different ethnicities, or they were not getting people from different, let's say, sexual orientation,
Yeah.
and it was obvious that the data itself was biased, right?
So using past data instead of
So it was not the tool. I don't think the tool was the problem. The problem was that the philosophy around the data and the data they were using to reference was indeed biased by a process they had been following for years in their hiring practices, right? So that's why I insist so much, especially as models become more complex and let's say institutions will have less and less influence in model architecture to integrate this data-centric approach and really concentrating having good data quality, right?
Yeah. And then getting data quality is a challenge. That's a whole new topic.
Exactly.
So you've got
And
structured, unstructured.
Yeah, and bias should be a bias. And bias should be one element to measuring data quality, right?
Yeah.
To try to understand your data very, very well. I mean, even today, I don't know how many people are actually measuring bias as part of the data quality effort. I haven't heard much, but I think it's because we are just in the very beginning of the scale up of many of these technologies, right? I mean, back in November, almost no one was using a generative AI, right? And today, almost everyone is trying to use it, right? So yeah.
Yeah, it's education. It's good to learn and trial and error, isn't it? Nothing's going to be perfect straight away. Obviously, it will cause issues for certain areas of people and businesses, but it's going to be a process to learn and change and adapt and then redefine. It's going to be a never ending. It's always going to be a new challenge bring up. So
Yeah.
not so busy times ahead in the AI world. What are you thinking are going to be the big challenges for businesses or threats for businesses then? Is it going to be mainly the data quality they have, or?
Well, at least what I see around me, data acquisition, very, very big problem.
Yeah.
Because especially when you look at legacy companies, big legacy corporations, I think data acquisition is a very big problem. In many cases, processes are not set up for data collection. I mean, they are set up to enable operational efficiency. So I think that's one of the biggest problems for legacy companies, which anyway are the majority of companies, I would say, at least in the United States. When you look at big companies, I think one of the biggest problems would be that around data. Number two, once you have collected data quality, of course, and data aggregation. And number three is that how you define which metrics make sense from a machine learning point of view. I think we have been, when you talk about business intelligence, let's say, which is the most common use application of data when we're trying to look to your sales or you are trying to make any historical analysis, the data quality is, let's say, the data quality approach is more obvious right? Because you don't want to describe the past and you tend to describe what has happened and probably make some kind of predictions. But when you start to think about using this same data to train AI models, I think everything changes. And the approach to data quality needs to evolve in that
Yeah.
sense, right? Because it's in the past you can say, hey, okay, I use my BI, I use my dashboards, and I can analyze this data. I know that biases exist. I know that I know my business, right? But when you try to use this same data to automate decision making or to automate people's future, or you want to use this data to make predictions, then that's when you can get into trouble, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I think. I think data acquisition, data quality, data curation, which is a concept that you don't hear much today.
Yeah.
I think I would, again, data-centric approach, because anyway, models are becoming so complex that only, let's say, a few companies probably will be able to provide the more complex models. I mean, you can see today we have basically three players, four players, probably important players in the large language model, say, market, and 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 they have the models, right? So you need to have the right data to leverage these models, right? So that's why I think data is the most important
Yeah.
aspect.
And do you think, obviously, I think, like you mentioned, obviously, data governance is going to be big coming up. Data quality, I think there'll be more roles coming up in them sort of areas because, let's say, if you're providing misleading information or using old data that's incorrect, it's going to be a massive
Mm-hmm.
challenge. So do you think that's going to be like a big market then for in the sort of more positions in them sort of areas?
Yeah, I would say yes. I think it's especially around data engineering, also because
Yeah,
the way you need to evolve your data, also the data engineering needs to change the kind of data you collect, how you collect it. There's a great opportunity to leverage unstructured data, which normally, again, not many legacy companies make a conscious effort about aggregating unstructured data. So yeah, definitely I would say there will be a very big market in that sense
yeah.
for specialists around anything related with data acquisition, data
Yeah.
engineering, data quality.
Cool. And how, I mean, so with that, how can businesses address their, I guess, is it just hiring these people? Is that going to address the challenges, or is it just again just getting on there? Because a lot of people, there's businesses, especially in the insurance world, you've got so much data, and even some of our clients are now invested in sort of how can they get more out of their data. So I guess they've got more correct data. Is that going to be the way to address these challenges? Is just looking into your data as much as possible?
Well, that's certainly important, right? How I aggregate my data, but you need to have you need to have an end in mind, right? And I
Mm.
think it's very important that you have a reflection process in order to identify what are the use cases that make more sense for you, your industry, for your markets, and try to identify where will make more sense to invest in this kind of technologies. It's a bit difficult game because if 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 leadership doesn't really understand what these technologies can do for them, it will be very difficult for them to make any kind of decisions around, okay, how do I prioritize data collection or what kind of data I want to collect, right?
Yeah,
I think I think it's an imperative for business leaders at all levels to really understand what is possible and at least to have a basic knowledge that AI is not as straightforward in terms of how you understand it and how you use it as you can have, for example, BI or any other kind of data analysis techniques. People
yeah,
need to get ready and educated around the art of the possible, if you want.
yeah. So what, like implement systems, just small steps at a time, not.
Yeah. I mean, you need your leaders to understand AI. You need to have your leaders to have a basic understanding of what is possible, and they need to understand that the concept of data aggregation, data quality needs to evolve in their organizations, right? Otherwise, I think you will end up in trouble with biases or any other kind of, let's say, undesired results around technology, right?
Cool. And then I guess there's obviously lots going on, lots of challenges. On the flip side, what opportunities will this bring? Will this obviously, is it going to bring more opportunities in terms of building new business models, data science models? What I guess we're ending on a positive. What positives is going to bring to businesses?
Yeah, it's a conversation not so long ago with some of our leadership. I think obviously the first opportunity is operational efficiency, right?
Yeah.
I think operational efficiency is the very first opportunity for any organization trying to use this model. And I think when you look to most of business cases or significant business cases have to do with operational efficiency. For example, something that immediately we start to hear a lot as soon as GPT-3 and ChatGPT came out was how I can do, for example, contract analysis, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's because people in organizations spend a lot of time analyzing contracts, right? So it makes an obvious application for this kind of technologies. So number one, I think is definitely operational efficiency. Number two, new business model development, of course, because you can enable a different approach, for example, to insurance. I teach, for example, in Columbia University in the Masters of Insurance, and one of the use cases we analyzed is Lemonade as a disruptor from the point of view of business models, right? So I think there is a great opportunity. In brokerage, for example, which is the market in which I am, I see a lot of opportunities, for example, if you have portfolio solutions or the kind of products in which you can actually enable more automated approach to the business, which is a good way to achieve operational efficiency, but also to enable other kind of business models that do not exist today, right? So I would say in both sides, I see opportunities, but definitely the most immediate one and probably the one with the biggest impact in the next few years will be how to achieve operational efficiencies.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, cool. Brilliant. It's been good to have you here. Anything you want to add?
No, well, just to thank you for the time today. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Brilliant. Yeah. Really appreciate your time as well.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.